welcome back to Death Stranding. Today, we're hopefully going to get back Amelie. But first, like always, beginning a new session. Check out what we've learned so far. We got a lot of mail to catch up on. Aaron Hill says... Let's go from the first one. Chronicles of Aaron, Chapter 1, The Great Embarkation. Hey Sam, just headed for the Tar Belt. Once you're past that, you'll be in Edgemont City at last. But only Amelie and the Vanguard ever made it that far. From what we've been hearing, everything west of the tar pit is pretty messed up. Lucky for you, we're going to construct a backup safe house once you get the chiral network hooked up over yonder. Director's orders got a heart of gold, doesn't he? Of course, the question was, who was going to get the sweet job of trekking all the way over there to build it? You guessed it, yours truly. Guess the golden heart of his doesn't bleed for me. Still, it's for the good of America, right? Everybody gotta do their best bit for the great rebuilding, I guess. Anyway, it looks like I'll be throwing on a pack and venturing out into the wilderness like my old friend Mr. Bridges. Wish me luck out there, Aaron Hill, Pioneer Adventurer, signing off. Aaron 2, The Lonely Road. Where are you at right now, Sam? I just left Mount Knot City behind. Don't worry, I'm not getting in touch with to gripe about how hard this is or anything. I'm fine, honestly. Nah, seriously, I'm a veteran of the first expedition. How else do you think I made it this far out west on my own? I can look after myself, especially with the forecast data available on the calendar these days. Uh, anyway, yeah. Always know when Typewall's on the way. Compared to last time, it's a breeze. Walking these mountains on your own, though, it wears on you. It really does. Can't believe you've traveled so far without a soul for company. Or another breed, seriously. Hey, anyway, I passed a beautiful heart-shaped lake a little ways back. I've heard of it, of course. The first time I ever saw it was on my own two eyes, though. The one by Hartman's place. Someone told me there used to be a city where that lake is, which reminds me of a story I heard about. So this porter who got snagged up by BT, all this tar started bubbling up from the ground, and along with the rocks and buildings and all sorts of debris. Stuff from the past, people said. The porter used it to escape the tar and give BT the slip. What do you reckon, Sam? Sounds a bit crazy when I think about it. Anyway, I swung by Hartman's place to say hi, but nobody answered me when I came knocking. Maybe he ain't as friendly as he makes out. Seems my journey though these mountains is going to be even lonelier than I thought. Can't give up now though. Let's both of us keep on trucking. Catch you later. I guess that was supposed to be the point at which you see, like, this is how you figure this out. And I figured it out on my own without having to look at the report. Cool. Guess what, Sam? I'm halfway there. Can you believe it? To tell you the truth, I'm struggling to believe it myself. Not so long ago, I was all but broken. Mind and body. My feet were nothing but blisters and chilblains. Sure. And going was so steep. I nearly slipped and fell more times than I could count. But just as I was about to curl up and die, you know what I came across? A hot spring. Damn, that thing saved my life, and it was not ordinary hot spring neither. Charging springs, you heard of them? The water there heals wounds, cures fatigue, and even recharges batteries. It's not nothing short miraculous. Nothing short of miraculous. Okay, so maybe I didn't just been across that place. The porter told me about it. Thanks, porter. See the path of exile is installed. See, I was doing my best to steer clear of BT territory, but my best wasn't quite good enough. So when I was about to walk into a heap of trouble, this guy showed up and told me I was headed for danger. He took me to the springs instead of even helped me, what? When I was walking to a heap of trouble, this guy showed up, told me I was headed for danger, and took me to the hot springs instead, and helped me carry my load. Can't tell how good it was to meet another traveler on the road, especially a friendly one. But yeah, we had a soak together and shot the shit. It's nice. Seems he'd mislaid some cargo meant Or British scientist said helping me out was his way of atoning for his sins. Ah, heard about him earlier. Now that I think about it, the whole part of his was pretty strange. He said the cargo contained ammonite with an umbilical cord. Ain't no such thing, right? Right? But yeah, can't speak ill of the guy. I wouldn't be here writing to you if it wasn't for him. Be safe out there. Till next time. Go do the biologist. Summoning objects from the other side through the tar. Sam, I've been analyzing the tar samples you collected. I've got to say, its properties were wholly unlike those of more common tar we have observed on this planet in the past. The same can be said for the tar from the strata in which the ammonite with the umbilical cord was found. No deposits have been discovered save for those accompanying massive fossil beaches. It's as if the literal stuff of extinctions. Even more strangely, it seems the objects submerged in concentrations of this tar are even more partially, if not entirely, transported elsewhere. Most likely to the beach, I suspect. Therefore, by chucking that nuke into the crater lake, you may have sent it to the other side itself. Assuming it's two-way street, that also means that matter sent to that world could theoretically return to the tar once more. This would explain some of the more fascinating stories I've heard of buildings swallowed by tar, only to miraculously rise from its depths at a later date, looking exactly as they did when they were lost. There's intriguing implications, don't you think? If the tar is a gateway to the past has consumed, then maybe it can be manipulated into regurgitating its old meals. Which we got. Paleontologist, the ammonite with the umbilical cord and the mass extinction. Sam, the ammonite with the umbilical cord has brought me as an undeniably brought us closer to solving the riddle that is the Death Stranding. I really cannot thank you enough. Thanks to that antimatter bomb you provided, I have finally been able to resume excavations. I remain confident that by continuing to research the fossils contained in the deeper strata, we can gain a greater understanding of how this particular ammonite is linked with the surrounding itself. Vocal cords are not necessarily the product of evolution, but possibly the result of a genetic factor that hastens extinction itself. Mere theory, which, if true, would invite questions. What of your own vocal cords? Are they indicative of a predestination towards self-destruction? And if so, is there anything we can do to change our course? A troubling possibility to consider, and one for which I have no response. Given this theory, one might consider umbilical cord to be representative of a connection between life and death, a dangerous and potential fatal relationship. Like the many connections like yourself have forged a potential force for good. For so many of our accomplishments are the product of our collective data, fundamental truth would have remained forgotten by many had you not brought us together. Stay our course, Sam. Stay the course, Sam. Thank you. You saved my life. Sam Porter Bridges. And I've heard an awful lot about you. I'm Porter too, you see. And I like to take an interest in my fellow delivery boys and girls. Now, you probably don't know the first thing about this, but the fact is, after that Stranding hit, the government didn't come to the rescue. Matter of fact, the almighty USA did jack shite. And you know who picked up the slack? The private porters, that's who. Making deliveries that kept people alive, stepping up and doing what no one else could or would. That's the world I grew up in. I learned at the end of the day, it's only people you can trust, individuals, not organizations. That's why I put no part of your GCA in bridges neither. Sorry, but that's just how I feel. Nevertheless, I will say that I am mighty grateful to you for bringing me those meds. I'm not sick or anything. I just, so you know, I'm not even injured. Just worn out, burnt out. Talk about the quantum level. If you like, that's what happens when you push yourself too far. Make one delivery too many. Used to be there wasn't a single mountain I couldn't climb. Even tracked down south to the places most explorers never even heard of, much less with their own two eyes. Not anymore. I'm not full on retired or anything, but I've been lying if I said I wasn't since worried about how much longer I could go on. I tell you what, though, I was doing a lot better after you dropped by to see me. It felt good to know I was had a buddy out there Someone who keep fighting the good fight long after I'm gone. Do that for me, won't you, Sam? Oh, speaking of the places down south, I remember the last time I was out there, I saw something, a glowing thing it was. No idea what the hell it was, but it didn't look like something somebody had dropped. Ever seen an object like that? South of Ben? Uh, good. Things to look for. How network connects people past and present, the spiritualist. Alright, Sam, I'm in good health and good spirits. I hope I have to say the Carmel network is quite impressive. Ever since you hooked the shelter up, my life has become much more exciting. I've been able to procure all sorts of goods that I've never seen before. I noticed quite a number of new structures going up nearby as well. I should also mention that I managed to unearth some old research data that might offer some insights onto some of the more unusual phenomena you might have experienced firsthand. I'm sure you have a vivid recollection of your many experiences in the scene, but it turns out that the person wandering around it that you may have identified as yourself may not be you at all, but someone else entirely. You see, while everyone's beach belongs to them and them alone, the scene is an altogether different beast. I've read about people who had near death experiences that involved the scene. When they came across someone else they found themselves somehow saved by them in the real world. They'd even received cargo packages and the like in some instances. Remarkable, you'd agree. You might even say that the chiral networks bridge the gap between this world and that in many ways that we've realized. In more ways than we realized. And I still don't know who someone else actually is. The fact that they're in the scene, though, would suggest it's someone who's died, wouldn't it? Going from the past. So, in essence, the past is intervening to keep the present alive. It's comforting to think that it's not just the BTs, other serious stuff that comes over from the other side. Maybe the chiral network can help us reconnect with more benevolent beings and positive forces from the past as well. Remember, Sam, I don't suppose you could keep an eye out for these mysterious someones from the past the next time you visit the scene, could you? To die. No nightmares. Hey Sam, thanks to you, the chiral contamination's all cleared up. I see symptoms though, the dizziness, headaches, insomnia. At first I was worried it was all down to my isolation in the shelter. Tense focus on my research from the past year. Really, but it got real bad when the nightmare started. I saw the end of the world, the portal to the beach opening, and the BTs pouring through by the thousands. There was nowhere to run, no time. They began scooping us up one by one, and then the void outs came, bigger and bigger until the massive one, or several massive ones, enveloped the whole world. And poof, just like that, when I was told Hartman about it, he likened it to the visions of extinction's doomed sufferers tend to experience. Strange though, after all, we now have incontrovertible proof that Chiralian is far from a recent addition to our world. Anyway, that's a problem for a different day. Important thing is I'm cured, and that's all thanks to you. My station. Let's see. I saw another one of those glowy things. I saw it again, Sam. That's some weird glowing thing. I've been swinging by the local incinerator daily, keeping an eye out for BTs, mind you, and it's getting easier to give them the slip. Just look out of our fluctuations in chiral density, and you've got a pretty good idea where they're headed when they're heading your way. You know what? I've been seeing one. I haven't seen one yet. And when the timefall's gotten pretty bad, my buddies told me that I need to go out there, and I don't need to go out there anymore. Don't need eyes on the BTs to track their movements, but I'd given it up. I want to have seen it again, that same strange glow, this time near the incinerator. You got to see it with your own eyes. I'm telling you, the chiral fluctuations don't tell the tale. Just promise me one thing, though. If you do go hunting for it, be careful, alright? I saw space in report. Sure. Dear Mr. Sam Bridges, can I tell you a story about something that happened recently? I was preparing dinner when all of a sudden my beloved oars popped into my head. I just had to go take a look. Do you know what I found when I got there? The most marvelous specimen I've ever laid eyes on. It was bigger than me, I swear. While I was standing there admiring it, I suddenly realized I was somewhere else, inside of it, and I was tiny baby in a great big gourd world. I grew up there, became an adult, and eventually Gourd World had a Death Stranding of its own. What did I do then? I shared boards with all the people of Gourd World, and they shut the BTs up inside of me. Set them all on fire. What world? Jeebus, guy. What is this fantasy? Gourd World would be safe, and I have saved it. Sure. Just how I was basking in the glory of it all, I woke to find myself back in the kitchen, pot boiling over, and I had been living in a whole other life in the Gourd World. Only a few minutes had passed in this one. Sure, you could call it a daydream, but to me, it could have been more real. Has anything like that ever happened to you? Gourd World. Jeepers. Alright, what's the new tip that we learned? All the way down. All the way. What toxic gas fog? It's in the air filled with toxic gas known as fog, and your consciousness gauge will be depleted. Once fully depleted, you will no longer be able to move. An oxygen mask can be worn to protect itself from these effects. Smoke. Smoke can be used to hide from your enemies. Using cargo from strand orders. Lost cargo from strand orders may sometimes be delivered to a share locker near its intended destination by other porters. If you entrust cargo for delivery by other porters, but no one agrees to deliver it for you within a certain time frame, the request will be rescinded. Guess someone did that for me. I've seen saving potential threats. You cannot rest or save your progress when close proximity to a potential threat. Sure. Interviews. I've got a few. Neanderthals are not extinct. Both Neanderthals and Homo sapiens are believed to share a common ancestor in the form of Homo heidelbergensis. Heidelbergenesis. Heidelbergenesis? Sure. But there are clear differences between the two. The Neanderthals were brutish and brawny, while equipped to hunt larger animals and survive in polar climates. The Homo sapiens were slender-limbed and only capable of hunting smaller prey. But as the millennia passed, Homo sapiens learned to create tools and hunt in the packs. Neanderthals who actually had larger brains, Was that supposed to be had? Neanderthals who actually had larger brains, and Homo sapiens also fashioned the tools of their own. But these were crude in comparison to developed a little over 200,000 years later. Developed a little over 200,000 years. Perhaps because the simple-minded beings favored small family units so that even if a breakthrough occurred, it was unlikely to be shared with others. This isolation, more than any other factor, seemed to have led to their decline. Homo sapiens meanwhile conceived religion with which large numbers of individuals could be bound together in service to a common cause. Strengthened in numbers also made their communities more resistant to famine and other calamities. In other words, Homo sapiens grew stronger through interpersonal connections by creating that which came to be called society. If we persist in our individual state, we risk losing this hard-won unity, dooming ourselves to the Neanderthal's fate. We will dwindle and die apart and alone. But history holds another intriguing lesson. Homo sapiens did not disdain the Neanderthals. The two species even intermingled on occasion. Our DNA retains vestiges of our ancestors' cousins even now. So you see, while our species may itself disappear, its genetic legacy may not yet may yet endure. Where's theory of evolution? The evolution of life on Earth could be described as the evolution of consciousness. When the first vertebrates clambered out of the oceans and onto the land, their consciousness expanded to process the new realm that lay before them. But their development did not end there. Their eyes moved from the flanks to their fronts, and they may comprehend the depth of the world. Animals formed groups, increasing their chances of survival. Eventually, they became together in communities. The larger species, in order to preserve and maintain these structures, even developed a perception of time. And in order for societies to outlast the lifespan of the individual, we conceived of an afterlife and a future beyond ourselves. Alas, the Death Stranding threatens to undo all our progress. Consider the chiral network, which incorporates the beach where time does not exist. Or consider timefall, which rapidly accelerates the generation of that which it comes into contact with. How can our sense of time owned over millions of years remain intact while we must cope with such irrational phenomena? Yet that is but the tip of the proverbial iceberg. We're going apart, retreating into isolation, gradually losing our place within society. I even go so far to say our conceptions of reality are under threat. How could they not be when our very eyes deny the invisible BT that stands before us? The stranding was warped our consciousness in every sense. The evolution of life on Earth is indeed akin to the evolution of consciousness, and what is happening now is undeniably a regression. Is it not? There is one caveat, of course. Some of us are now far more aware of our death than we ever were. What Dooms has given us. For me, therefore, Dooms is not merely a biological change. I prefer to think of it as a means by which I have achieved a new form of consciousness. Furthermore, I hope to believe that this new awareness, the other side is humanity's trump card as we seek to defeat the Death Stranding. Develop reports and Devonian? Sure, Devonian era fossils. An article from an old scientific journal was recently brought to my attention. It predates the Death Stranding in terms of discovery of a 380 million year old fossil. One of the Devonian era. To give the period its proper name, it was the fossil of a fish, and its womb was a child connected to its mother by an umbilical cord, no less. Species, Metaphysis, Metaphysis, Attenborough, sure. Uh, it's pachyderm, an extinct class of armored marine creature that used to live in the seas the world over. Unfortunately, most were wiped out during the Devonian era, right around the time of the second of the Big Five impact. As you may be aware, one of the key foci of my research is the link between the creatures with umbilical cords and the mass extinctions. Once this area is connected to the chiral network, it is my hope that we may be able to piece together more data that will help us learn more about the link between umbilical cords and the Death Stranding. Cool. Some more interviews. Should be it. And the rest of the journals. Some extra stuff. Let's go interview the geologist. I remember it was just before I joined the expedition when I found those documents in Bridges HQ, research papers that predated the Death Stranding. People used to believe that dinosaurs had gone extinct at the end of the Cretaceous period, 65 million years ago. But when this fellow investigated the various locations where late Cretaceous dino fossils had been found, he came to the startling conclusion that there was hardly any evidence anywhere on Earth that supported the theory that dinosaurs had survived until the end of the Cretaceous. In other words, almost all of them had been wiped out long before that. The only place where they were fossils that did not support the traditional theory was here in North America. which suggested that there was the last part on Earth to have been inhabited by dinosaurs. Not everyone agreed with this analysis at the time, but let's say he had it right. That would mean that there is evidence of mass extinction hidden here, right beneath our feet, evidence which could provide invaluable in understanding the one on the horizon. Sure. Did the dinosaurs who happen to live here just get lucky, or is there something special about this place that allowed them to survive? I'd go. I'd love to go to the bottom of it. I'm not sure I have what it takes. I'm not like Hartman. I don't have dooms or any others unique traits. Still, not like Hartman. I don't. Still, I want to make myself useful. Let's research the stranding and help uncover the truth behind it. That's why I joined the expedition team, after all. Uh, Agree with paleontologists. In the period since the very first forms of life rose here on Earth, the planet has witnessed a number of mass extinctions. As you've no doubt aware, the most significant are those that are known as the Big Five. The first marked the end of the Ordovician period, while the next, at the end of the Devonian period, wiped out almost all the marine life. But the third of these extinctions, at the end of Permian, 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 sure, period, bound 250 million years ago, was even worse. 96% of all marine organisms and 70% of land organisms died as a result. Before extinction finished off most of the large reptilians, the dinosaurs managed to hold on until a fifth came around along the end of the Cretaceous period. 65 million years ago, we humans are evolved from a small mammals which managed to survive that particular catastrophe. Each of these five extinctions resulted with enormous changes to the natural environment. Species which were unable to adapt to these changes perished, while those which were ideal situated to evolve and thrive did just that. As evidence from records which predate the Death Stranding indicate that many scholars believed a sixth mass extinction was on its way, or that it may have already begun. There was something of a consensus uh, regarding its cause as well, and its destruction of the environment. This led them to sound the alarm, warning the world that what was at stake. At the time, the greatest minds of the era believed that if the ecosystem could be preserved, if humanity could learn to live in harmony with nature, that a future could be secured for all the world's species, humans included. But that was then, and this is now. The phenomenon we are currently experiencing is indeed the sixth extinction, and must be acknowledged that humanity is its main target. Is this divine punishment for our misdeeds? If so, then I suppose there is little that can be done. Perhaps there is no forward for humanity now. Nevertheless, I refuse to give up. Will endure. I will endeavor to find hope in our predicaments. Interview with Evil Deeper Biologist. I was born after the Death Stranding, so my conception of what the world once was is derived entirely from documents, photographs, and video. We didn't used to have timefall, for one, just the regular rain, no cover clouds, only the traditional masses of suspended moisture, and certainly did not have to worry about tar bubbling up from underground. In most locales, humans could travel anywhere, even into space. We were blissfully unaware of the beach's existence. Suffice to say, there is no doubt that this is a period of sweeping change that will have lasting repercussions for all life on Earth. Given that dooms may simply be humanity's way of trying to adapt and survive, a beach exists within the consciousness of every individual, but these environmental changes, they affect all life on a genetic level, do they not? That is why I thought to investigate them, and the medium through which I chose to do so is the tar. which has become so ambiguous. Uh, so ambiguous? Sure. Ubiquitous. Ubiquitous. But you're not interested in that, I'm sure. So you know there's a very real possibility that we have already failed to adapt to the sixth extinction. We are but another evolutionary dead and soon to be left behind. If that is the case, then it would be reassured. Then it would be reasoned that the ones afflicted with dooms, therefore blessed with the enhanced perception of the beach, are successors who will survive and supplant us. I suppose that would be a shame, but it doesn't trouble me all that much. My research will survive as well, and the doomed sufferers can pick up from where I left off. It will carry on my genetic lineage too, for that, no matter. No, what worries me is not even dooms will prove sufficient to endure this extinction. If that is the case, then humanity is doomed. It's certainly a possibility we have to acknowledge. More than that, one question looms above all. Why? Why now? Why like this? That's what I want to know more than anything. Somehow I doubt the dinosaurs and all the other species that came and went ever considered that question, worrying over the reason for this, and that is a uniquely human condition, I suppose. Yet this idle curiosity may be the key to uh, an understanding and overcoming destiny. I don't know. I heard the area is pretty inhospitable before I got up here. Got your fair share of mountains, obviously, and on top of that were all these rumors about a secret terrorist base or something. So I figured I was in for a bad time. But when me and the team got here, yeah, it was way worse than what we thought. Felt like that we could get jumped on any second, you know? I tell you what, though I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw all that tar out west. Wondered what the hell Amelie and her team made it through, but uh, someone had someone said it wasn't nearly as bad as when they made the trip. I was sent out to take a closer look, and man, it was something else. Had been there long enough. Hard to imagine all the bubbled up dam. Hard to imagine that all hard to imagine all that bubbled up damn near overnight. Honestly, it felt like I was standing at the edge of the world. We don't have much about Tar except that it wasn't around before the stranding. Same as the Timefall and Corellium. There's some speculation that it might be some byproduct of the beach. That if you could somehow retrace the flow, you'd end up there. But that's all theoretical stuff. Right now, we've got a practical problem to deal with. One of the chiral relays we built is at risk of going there at any moment. We don't have the manpower to relocate it yet, but we should once the second expedition shows up. Whether we can wait so that long is another question, though. Maybe you can tell them to get their asses in gear if you get the chance. That's it. What's our new song? Patience by Little Wolf.